We have, as you see, real people, real freedom. Our society has gotten to where, what is a Christian? And nobody can live up to what we claim is a Christian. And so we are here to tell you, some of you already know some of these stories and know us, some of you don't, but we're here to expose who we are and the real Amy and Mark and what we've been through and what we've done. You wanna?
Does my hair look okay? Is that?
Go.
So we picked.
I'm sorry.
We picked. She needs to pre-apologize. We picked this title because, first of all, it's our church's motto, and so it became something we decided on in the last talk we had. We had a long list of dirty laundry, we call it. We were going to have some dirty laundry up here. We didn't think that was appropriate, though. So
Chris wouldn't let us put our clothesline with our dirty laundry.
So, right. We wanted to talk about being real, and so, as Christians, we all know that we hide a lot of stuff. And so our church decided to be real people and to enjoy real freedom as Christians. So being real is something we try to be, and we really don't hide anything. Amy's been teaching Sunday school for as long as we've been married. And so our joke is that she never had to write a Sunday school lesson because material just kind of presented itself.
Manna from the sky.
To us. Things that happened to us, she turned it into a lesson, every Sunday school lesson, and every Friday night group that she speaks at. So let's look at what the definition of real is, according to Merriam-Webster, or whoever wrote this. So real means actually existing as a thing or occurring in fact. It's not imitation or artificial, that it's genuine. And so those of you that know us, we try to live up to that. We try not to be fake. We try to be genuine. We tried to hide it a long time ago, but it became overwhelming. There was too much happening. So we just we'll just tell everyone. We don't care. So that's kind of how we see that we should be. And so we're just trying to live that for others.
So we're going to share with you our story. The next one is Mark and I, about 25 years ago, we got married, and
hold on a second. We have to talk about the hair there. Look at.
You had some, and it was darker.
That really is me.
Yeah, it really is. That's why I married him, because of that picture. I didn't know this was going to happen. Okay.
Wait a minute. So wait, I'm stuck between the 80s and the 70s, maybe. I don't know.
You're stuck. That's right. Okay.
She cleaned me up.
This is where we began, and we're going to tell you a little bit more later about our story. Some of you know that, but we'll share more with you.
Our anniversary is tomorrow.
Yeah, anniversary's tomorrow.
I remembered.
Next. And this is the clan that we have produced.
We're responsible for this, is what she's saying.
There's our kids.
I like to introduce them as our kids. We have 4 girls, 3 boys. Some were adopted, some weren't. But she has a lot more of a unique way to introduce our family.
This is our family, and honestly, it was not presented like this or meant to be like this, but it's Memory Megan, Morgan Mark, Max Mason Marley. My husband's name is Mark, and I'm Amy, but you have to call me Mom or I don't fit in the M&M family.
Yeah.
So
we tried to change her name to Mamie, but she wouldn't.
No, we're not.
She didn't like that.
No, too many illegal things to be changed.
And once you start naming a kid with the same letter, you can't really stop after a while, because then.
When we adopted the kids, the older said, we have to name them with M's or they won't fit in. And so then that just kind of stuck.
Well, because Max was our first one we adopted, because he was black, the older girls tried to find a black name. And so they came up with these 47-letter names.
And I explained to them that it was my fault. I did not give them parameters. Yeah. He had to be able to spell it by the time he was in kindergarten. People had to be able to pronounce it when they see it. And then they wadded the paper up, threw it away, and we named him Max after my grandfather.
I love it.
Okay. This is the Combs family and some of the things that represent us.
Now wait, we need to take a minute. Anyone with small children might want to Oh no, this is the good part.
I'll
warn you in a minute.
Positive. This is still positive. This is us. This coming year will be my 40th year with Lebanon City Schools, and thanks. I have been a teacher, a curriculum leader, and now I am a parent mentor for special needs kids and their families. Mark worked at Miami Valley Hospital, retired, and now he owns his own construction business, Combs Home Services. And then we have a daughter who is a radiation therapist. We have one who is an RN. We have a son who is a utility contractor. We have a daughter who's a business manager, Home Depot, TJ Maxx. We have a welder. We have some really successful kids that are really doing well. And we couldn't be prouder of them. Couldn't be prouder of them, including our daughter who just recently graduated. We now are officially all adult children. Yes.
The last one.
Okay, anyway, go ahead.
So Amy and I both were raised in church. I was raised in a Pentecostal church. She was raised in a Baptist church.
Which makes us Baptist-costal.
Right. But it was funny when we first met, and we met in church. So we met in a non-denominational church. And the first time I looked at her Bible, she had all these writings in the Bible. I didn't think you could write in your Bible. I didn't think it was allowed. I thought it was blasphemous or sacrilegious or whatever, one of those words.
Because I was anti-religious
well,
or
that's
something.
how we learn. That's how and I said, I never wrote in my Bible, so I've written in it since then, though. But we were both raised in church. We met in church, and
thank you, Greg Sandlin.
Yeah, Greg Sandlin is partly to blame.
It's his fault. This mess is his fault.
My sister knew Greg. My sister was also in Amy's Sunday school class. Greg knew Amy, so
through the school.
Greg was trying to fix Amy up with me. My sister was trying to fix me up with Amy, but I had gone through a divorce and I had no intention I was trying to survive. I had no intention of dating or getting married or any of that stuff. I was just trying to live day to day. But long story short, we got married. Life is good. We officially, because we were older, I had brought 4 kids into the marriage, so we decided to adopt a kid. So we officially adopted 3 more kids, so we have 7 kids. And then, I guess unofficially, since we adopted, we kept our foster license. So unofficially, while I was working at the hospital, she was still working in an office at school as a curriculum leader then. She calls me up because one of her students was going to be placed into a foster home again.
It was my grand student. I had the dad when he was in 2nd grade, and now I was dealing with the son when he was in 3rd grade, and so he was my grand student, and I had a special place for me.
Right. So she calls me and says, honey, can I bring home one of my students? She didn't say grand students, but she said he's getting ready to go to his 11th foster home. So, at the time, we thought that they were going to get placed with a biological grandmother a few months down the road, so it was going to be temporary. So then, I said, sure, what can I say? I had to say, I can't say no.
But
so we found out it was a brother also, so we had 2 of them. And they were great.
I didn't tell you 2 at once because I was afraid you'd say no, so if I just said one, couldn't say no to the second one.
True. But we had those 2 guys for 6 months maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought we were going to keep them because the grandmother in Pennsylvania almost didn't follow through on her stuff, but she finally did. And so after that, I don't know, a couple of years later, a few years ago, we also had to foster my great-nephews? Great-nephews?
Yeah, great.
However you say it. Because just drug situation. So we had a couple of my grandnephews, for a short time.
Yep. And then we had our one that's still in our lives. Those boys we don't see much. Nazir and Isaiah we see all the time. They stayed in our lives. My 2 students, they stayed in our lives, and we see them and talk to them on the phone a lot. But then we have what I call my 8th real child, and that is Tudor. Tudor is Mark's ex-wife's son. After he got divorced, she had a child. She ended up passing away with cancer and left him with really nobody. And so, of course, my heart couldn't take that. And so he is ours now and celebrates Christmas and Thanksgiving. And actually, he's getting married here in a couple months, and we're going to be his family representatives at the wedding. And so we really have 8 kids now, I say, because Tudor's in our family.
We tried to get him to change his name to an M name, but
He didn't want to do that.
we didn't name him. So God really has blessed us through all of that. And if you notice some of the pictures, we live in a beautiful house. If I had lived in the house that I live in today as a kid, I would have been rich. I would have thought we were rich because I grew up poor. She grew up middle class, so it was kind of like I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. She's not the rock and roll, by the way. That was me. But God's blessed us. So we have 2 dogs that were really Amy's gifts, but one of them turned out to be my girlfriend.
Dogs.
One of them turned out to be Morgan's boyfriend. So we have an 80-pound lab who thinks I'm her boyfriend, so I can't.
She wakes him up every morning at 4:30 and wants Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
And she'll actually go to the Pop-Tart drawer and knock the cabinet open to get him to get them.
It's bad.
It's bad. It is real bad. So that's our life, pretty much, of who we are. And last week, Dennis talked about we're all in the same boat. And so we hope that you're in our boat with us, the cruise liner, moving down the beautiful sea, looking at the beautiful blue ocean, and enjoying the ride.
Love it.
Isn't it great?
Has anyone been on a cruise here? It's the best ever.
It's best. That's our life.
We've only had a few people say that it wasn't a good experience, but it was one of the best vacations we've ever had. So that's the boat that I picture us being in forever. However, what we're really here today for, and because we can't lie, you're not supposed to lie at least. So according to the Bible, in Ephesians 4:25, and I like to call this the Irv version.
It's really, he
Because
makes fun of me. It's the easy reader
I grew
version
up- I graduated
that I use
with
for
a guy named
kids
Irv.
to understand, and he makes fun
He
of it.
told me he knew all about the Bible. I
It's
thought it was
not
his
your
definition.
friend Irv. It is the easy read version.
Because
Read the
she's
scripture.
an
Move
elementary
on.
teacher. She says,
Read the scripture.
all right, it says, so you must stop telling lies. You must always speak the truth to each other because we all belong to each other in the same body or
As Dennis said, we're in the same
Boat.
boat. Well, so that's enough of our Facebook family. And if everything you've seen so far is what you see on Facebook. And now we're going to get real with you.
She used to be really upset with when Facebook first came out because we have 7 kids. All she would see on Facebook was these perfect pictures, perfect families,
with families
perfect
dressed
mothers.
alike, you know what I'm talking about? The kids doing
Nobody
great
would
things.
ever put anything on Facebook that was negative because no one wanted to see, no one wanted to show their
Real.
negative side
Real.
of their family, the real side. So this is where I need to make a
Disclaimer.
I wanted to, before you flip the screen, it's too late, Mike. You already did it.
Yeah.
But I wanted anyone with small children or faint of heart it's time, you can step out for this next part, but it's okay.
This is the real Combs
Most
family.
people, just take a minute and look at our, I don't know, what do you call this? A Wordle.
Mess.
A word
no.
art.
No.
It's a mess. So this is the real Combs family. Everything you see on the screen is something we've gone through or are going through. And if you notice on the bottom right, it says, and so much more, because there wasn't room to put everything up there. And I know everyone in here, everybody in here has had to deal with at least one or more of what's on the screen. Maybe even have something different, I don't know. But we are dealing with this stuff or have dealt with this stuff. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those things. And some of the things that really are hitting hard today, one of them is addictions. And so I told you earlier about my grandnephews that I had. And we got them for a short time because their mother and father were both on drugs and they got removed from their family. And so we had them for a short time. But addiction has not only hit that part of it, it's hit other parts of our lives. And I wasn't going to say this part, but
I told him he had to because we're not allowed to.
well,
lie
I
in
told
church.
Amy, I said, I don't want people to think less of me. But she said, honey, don't
They can't.
worry. They
Oh.
can't think any less of you than they already do. So addiction was me. Well, as a young man, I was addicted to drugs. I sold drugs just so I could use the drugs for free. That's how I supported my habit for many years as a young man. And I lived to tell about it. But addiction can be lots of things. It can be addiction to drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping, eating. We have a daughter who's addicted to stuff. She likes anything new or anything. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be a new item. It could be a new event or a new whatever. And that's where she gets her high. Her dopamine rush comes off anything new, and then once it's over, she crashes. And so that's kind of an addictive behavior that she has.
And probably everybody in here can deal with that. You may not have the heroin or the alcohol or the drugs, but you have somebody in your family, if not yourself, that's struggling with some kind of an addiction. It might be the food issue. Yeah. It might be even just a pop. You have to have a pop. You have to have a cup of coffee. And that addiction is you have to have it.
Yeah, anything that takes the place of,
of God.
Something you should be doing.
The first priority of your life.
Right. We've also had to deal with lots of health issues. And I know that's another thing that affects everyone. And not everybody wants to talk about that. We found things out about some of our fellow Christians here that we had no idea they were going through some struggles. And I get people like to be private, and that's one thing. Some people are just too prideful. They don't want to ask for help. We were there. I felt terrible asking for help. Amy had a lot of health issues when we were first married. We got married in July of 99, July 10th, because tomorrow's July 10th.
Good
and then in February of that following year, so 6 months, we were married 6 months, and she had to have a major surgery on her abdomen. And so I was changing her diaper, and we'd only been married 6 months.
Great honeymoon, first marriage.
So, that's
when
true
you know
love.
he really loves you.
So that was my chance to leave. But so we've had a lot of health issues. Amy's had a lot of chronic issues that she's dealt with her whole life and our whole marriage. And so a lot of you people have come to our aid over the years, and we appreciate every one of you.
And so, many of you can relate to that, whether it's a short-term illness or long-term, or the caring for somebody who has an illness. Both of us cared for our families, our parents, until their passing, and that was tough. That was tough being that sandwich generation. Many of you are there, where you have your children, but you also have your parents that you feel responsible or obligated to. And then on top of that, having your own health issues. It was tough. There was a lot of times it was really tough. And let me tell you about my Jesus. He came through for us during those times.
Yeah,
he came through.
Another thing, and then our kids went through a lot of health problems. They were all in sports, so we've had broken bones and, sprains and
concussions and all that stuff. Yep.
And, the other thing I want to talk about is divorce. And so the church I grew up in, we just didn't believe in divorce. And so my first marriage, let me just say, because my kids are watching, let me just be careful and say, when we got divorced, I got custody of the kids, of all 4 kids. So that kind of should tell you a little bit about how my marriage was, how my first marriage was.
I loved his first wife. Isn't that weird?
She had a lot of
I went to her grandparents' house for Christmas and took the kids over there because of my background with education. She had some really major trauma events happen when she was a young child, and when I looked at her, I saw that trauma. And
all I saw was hate.
And I knew that she was responding to that trauma.
Amy helped me get over that. And it's true. I did not like that woman. But now I felt compassion for her because of her upbringing. She had a terrible life growing up.
So, a couple of other things that we have on here is adopting the black kids. We decided, because of all my health issues, not to have children of our own. There were plenty out there, and they didn't have to be my bloodline. I didn't care about that. I just loved children. And so we decided to adopt. And the lady at the adoption agency said, would you consider a special needs child? And we said, well, it depends on what you mean special needs. I don't want one bedridden because I already have my own chronic health issues. And she said, well, like maybe a black child. Oh, they're considered special needs? Yeah, because they're really hard to place. And I said, we'll take one.
That was a shock to us.
That was easy. Well, we did, and we ended up adopting Max, and we ended up later adopting Mason. And I'm here to tell you, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, I was not real involved in all that stuff until these kids became part of my life. When Max was in high school and they read To Kill a Mockingbird, they decided, the kids on his team, football team that loved him and respected him, decided to lynch him from the cafeteria balcony to do a live representation of To Kill a Mockingbird. We have been through some really tough stuff with that. It has been a real eye-opening thing for me. The respect that I have grown to give that whole culture and what we have done to them, even though the whole slavery thing is over, supposedly, we're still degrading those kids, and we're still pointing our fingers at them and expecting different relationships. And want to get me started, don't get me started on that, because those are my babies and I'm a mama hen. Another thing I want to talk to you that's a little bit touchy. One of our daughters is married to a Muslim. And people say, well, how can you do that and be a Christian? Well, Jesus says you love everybody. He tells us that God will do the changing if he wants them changed. You're not supposed to go out there and change the people yourself. You are supposed to represent me and love me and be me to them. Sheikh has become one of our best family members. We love him dearly. He cares for our daughter wonderfully. We have not a bad thing to say about him. He brought his mom over from, they live in Morocco. He brought his mom over and she sat at our Thanksgiving dinner with us and enjoyed our time with them. We're representing Jesus to them, and if God wants to make a change in him, he will. I want them to know that we're here for them to answer questions or talk to them about it, and I want to have a relationship that they feel comfortable to come and do that with us. We also have a daughter that has chosen to live the lesbian lifestyle, and again, same thing. Her partner is very supportive of her and mentally helping her through a lot of stuff, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for that. Our daughter's been through a lot of stuff and a lot of trauma herself. And so we're thankful that she has somebody that can be there for her and support her. We raised her knowing Jesus and God. And if God wants her to come home, and when he's ready for her to come home, he will. He's building a testimony in her, and she'll come home when she needs to come home. He's in charge of that, not us. But those are some touchy areas of discrimination that our personal family has dealt with and had to come to overcome, and we still get questioned about that and asked about that a lot. The other thing I want to talk about is the whole education piece. When we got Mason, Mason was thought to be a deaf mute. He wouldn't talk. When I would take him to the doctor, the doctor would say, yeah, but when he wants a drink, he'll point to the drink and say, And I said, no, he doesn't. And every checkup, we'd go back and I'd say, he needs something. And being the education person I am and work with special ed kids, he needs something. I know how important early intervention is. So finally, Mark had to take a day off work and come to the doctor with me because I said one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to be in jail and you're going to raise all these kids on your own because I'm going to kill the pediatrician for not giving me a referral so I can find out what's going on.
He was a good one. I didn't want anything to happen.
Or we're going to end up in a divorce if he doesn't come and help us because Mason and I need him. And so he came and he talked the doctor into giving me a referral, and we got him into therapy immediately, got him things. He's our welder now, who is very successful, and our joke is he makes more money than everybody else in the household, and he's 19 years old.
That's a plug for the Career Center, by the way.
Yeah, plug for the Career Center there. So through him, and then two of our grandsons are autistic, we have had to go through a lot of IEP, 504, special ed meetings, learning all about that whole special ed process. And for those of you who have never been through that, never dealt with a special needs child, that is huge.
Exhausting.
It is
exhausting.
huge because you have to be the representative for your family. Nobody knows your kid better than you do. And you have to fight for that and work for that, and that wears you out. That wears you out. The other piece is the mental health piece. We have lots of mental health issues going on, and now that's the society buzzword, but we have some severe mental health issues going on, depression, anxiety, lots of medications. We've tried to get things worked through because of some of the mental illnesses. We've had a lot of suicide dealings. We've had to have hospitalizations. We've had missing people. We've had
Missing vehicles.
missing vehicles that have been stolen. We have had lots of things that have happened all through this mental illness piece. That is real. And if any of you are dealing with that, we get it. We are dealing with that. That doesn't go away. Hopefully you can get the right medication, the right therapy, the right counselors to help you. But guys, it doesn't go away. And so we're still dealing with that as well.
And we don't always, we tried therapy, we tried counseling. It doesn't mean medication is for everyone, but sometimes
It ends up being that, yeah.
Right. So those are mostly those are the big issues that
Or heavy ones.
we've dealt with, the heavy ones. But I want to talk about just the everyday things that we deal with. Just the normal car issues. We had our basement is flooded 3 times in 20 years. So 2 of them were man-made, kid-made. The last one was just from a storm and the sump pump quit and all that. We've had a house fire. That was kid-made also. But we've had some just normal day-to-day things that we deal with every day. And one of the things on the screen, and I just saw a Facebook meme about the hardest thing about being a parent is trying to plan what's for dinner every day for the rest of your life. And
everybody here can relate to that one.
Amy's mom
Better known as a
was a
food
cook.
fairy.
She cooked for 30 years for Lebanon schools, and she was an awesome cook. And so when we met, her mom had just retired, and so she knew Amy inherited this man with these 4 kids, so she cooked for us almost every day.
I'd come home from work, and there on the stove would be this great dinner. There'd be chicken in the oven, and we'd have all the vegetables on the table. It was great. It was wonderful.
Well, I mean, we were in shock because as a single dad, I was raising these 4 kids on my own for almost 2 years, and we ate mac and cheese and hot dogs. I mean, that's what we ate. So
Grilled cheese and tomato soup, too.
Well, yeah, that's true. That was my second meal. So her mom did this almost every day. We called her the food fairy because she had a key to our house. She could come and go as she wanted, and we loved it. So as her mom got older, she was able to do it less and less. And so it was kind of, we knew one day that she wasn't going to be able to do it anymore. And that day came, and I specifically remember talking to Amy about, well, what do you want for dinner tonight? And she said, I don't know, whatever you want to fix. And I said, well, what are you going to fix? She said, oh, sweetie, I don't cook. And I said, well, wait a minute, your mom was a
I am my
wonderful
father.
cook.
I fix. I don't
She
cook.
said, oh, I didn't get that gene from her, and she was a lion. I learned to cook after that.
I don't cook.
What's for dinner became a big deal for me. So now,
After you look
saying
at all these,
that, I want to ask you guys the same
Yeah.
question again. You guys saw the cruise ship earlier. And those of you that have been on a cruise know that those are wonderful. So let's take a look at the next slide. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Now, are you guys in our real boat? Are you in our boat? Because this is what ours looks like sometimes. Now, I do have tools, and I can fix a lot of things, but sometimes our boat has holes in it. Sometimes it doesn't float as well as it should.
yeah, right. Most of the time, it doesn't float.
But, we know that Jesus works all things for the good of those who love him. So sometimes you're in the cruise liner, sometimes you're in Gilligan's boat.
The cruise liner's usually for a week.
Yeah.
This is life. People have asked us all the time, how do you guys do this? And you're always so positive, and you're walking around and things are good. And how are you doing this? How do you keep up and keep upbeat about things, and how do you do this? One of the things we do is count on and hope for and pray for divine intervention. And we have a scripture that we have kind of held firm to.
Yep.
Mark, do you want to read that?
Yeah, it's Ephesians 4, 2, and 3. It says, always be humble and gentle, be patient, and accept each other with love. You are joined together with peace through the Spirit. Do all you can to continue as you are, letting peace hold you together. And boy, sometimes that's hard.
And with the Muslim, the lesbian lifestyle, the mental illness, those kind of things, we have to accept all that with love. We don't have to accept the lifestyle, the behavior, we don't have to accept those things, but we still have to love them and work through it. And it is hard. It is not easy, it is hard. The Bible tells us all the time that obstacles are going to be placed before you. You're going to have tests all the time. Some are God letting you experience something so that you can have a testimony for Him. And some are Satan attacking you and working on you and seeing if your faith is strong enough to overcome Satan and his fiery darts. You know, back in the Old Testament, Isaiah 40, I think it is, says that, He gives you all the strength that you need. He'll give you the wisdom. You need to seek Him and ask Him for that. Mark wanted to bring our knee pads. I have volleyball knee pads from where I played volleyball. He has knee pads from where he does work. That was going to be the other prop we were having because of the amount of time we spend on our knees in prayer, asking God to give us wisdom. We also understand God's promise that says all these things will turn out for the good. Somehow, every one of these things that we've been through turned out for the good. The flooded basement got us insurance money so we could remodel the basement, which became an apartment for our daughter and her sons. The fire in the kitchen, Marley trying to cook fried pickles and had no clue what she was doing, which burnt my kitchen down. But anyway, got me a new kitchen with new cabinetry and new stove. And so God does have a way of working all these things for the good. Here's the catch. Are you willing to work through it and count on God to be there with you to get you through that shipwreck of a mess that you're living in? Because that's what we've had to do. Mark and I have had to come closer to each other and to God. And Dennis told our line last week about the 3 chords. We have Amy, we have Mark, and we have God. And this week I had to go to Columbus to get a treatment for my medicine, for my issues. And he said, we were talking about the stolen car and all this stuff happening. And he said, luckily there's the 2 of us and we can stand back to back, which Dennis said, if you were here last week, Dennis had talked about. And I said, and we have God to wrap His cord around us. And so the 3 of us together can get through this. And you know what? Every time we have. And all these things that happened, our older son, who now has a beautiful son, and another one on the way, he was an addict and he got violent. Our daughter was petrified of him. We came home one day and he had Max up by the throat against the wall going to kill him because he didn't like what he was saying. We kicked the boy out of our house that very minute. He was out. You're not coming back. I can't have my kids in danger.
That was the hardest thing.
Hardest thing I've ever done.
Well, it wasn't the hardest thing I ever did.
It was the hardest thing I had ever done.
Well, I had to sing a solo in 6th grade once. That wasn't. The music teacher, that was bad. It was the second
Anyway,
hardest.
moving on.
That was
we don't want to go there. He just sent us, just this past week, not knowing we were doing this, he had no clue.
Yeah.
He sent us this text message out of the clear blue saying, guys, I want to thank you for being the great parents you are. Had you not done that and thrown me out to the wolves, basically, to realize how hard life really was, I would never have come home. And he's been our prodigal son. He's come home. He's raising this wonderful family. He's clean. He's sober. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. But we had to just let go of him and turn him over to God and say, God, you let us borrow him from you. He was a gift from you to us. We had to let him go. And through all of this, we have always counted on God to get us through this. It's not easy, guys. Don't think that we've just breezed through this. It has not been easy.
We've done a lot of crying,
We have done a lot of crying.
and I don't usually admit that, but
The cheapest place to get tissues is Walmart,
Yeah.
and we have lots of boxes around the house because we've had to
it's tough.
use our share. We've got a couple stories. I want to give you some specifics about how God has intervened in our life and some of the miraculous things that he's done. Mark, you want to share the first one?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can read that slide. Do we have that slide? Yeah. This is a tissue, speaking of tissues.
Yeah.
This is a Kleenex tissue that, if you notice the date, it's from June 25th of 98. So the church that we used to go to, most of the choir and the church, Amy was in the choir at that church. At the time, we didn't know each other. We had went to a camp meeting at Princeton Pike Church of God on this date. And so the evangelist on that day was speaking on the book of Ruth and how she was gleaning in the fields in chapter 2, picking up all the leftover grain from the harvesters. And so he called each handful of grain she picked up handfuls of hope. So he passed out a tissue to every person in the congregation, and that was kind of symbolic of us grabbing a handful of hope, just like in Ruth. And so she stood on God's word, and everything turned out better for her because she was in a foreign country, and she was in a mess. So I just happened to write on there, handful of hope, put the date on there, and said what it was. Now, below that, I don't know if you could read what it says below, where it says, could you say I met Amy at UDF?
Yeah. Saw Amy.
So I wrote this in later after we met each other. But I kept that in my Bible in the book of Ruth. So on the way home from Princeton Pike Church, I had my nephew with me, my kids. I pulled into UDF. My nephew went in to get a drink or something. Amy pulled in with her friend right next to us. I didn't know her. I just recognized her from church. Her friend got out and went in the store, and I just glanced over and just kind of waved at her.
And when he waved, God audibly, and I'm not kidding to you, audibly spoke to me and said, Amy, that is going to be your husband.
And
I
that's
did not
the
know
power
who he
I
was.
have as a lightning came and thunder rolled.
Honey, we're telling the truth.
Oh, yeah.
I heard
did
God
talk-
tell me that is going to be my husband. I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything about him. I knew he went to our church. That's all I knew.
But he didn't say that to me, though. So when we met later, she said, no, God told me. So I didn't think I had a choice.
I keep a journal, and just recently I'm going through purging stuff and cleaning up stuff, and recently read through the journal, and it was hysterical, the whole relationship piece of getting to know him, and I thought he was married and had these kids because his sister Brenda that he talked about earlier that was friends with Greg was always helping him with the kids. And I said, God, you
'Cause I
can't do
needed
this.
help.
You can't tell me this man is going to be my husband and he's married. And look, his wife is there and she loves those kids. That was the aunt of the kids, but I didn't know that. And so I'm freaking out. And then Greg finally had to talk me off the ledge and figure me out who people were, and that worked out okay. The other thing, we ended up married, and here we are today with all the mess we are in and our cruise liner.
I didn't find out till later. My buddy said, dude, you didn't have to marry her. God didn't tell you. But it's too late now.
When he asked my dad for my hand in marriage, my dad told him. And so my mom, until she passed away, reminded him often. He said, yes, you can have her, but there's 3 conditions. You need to understand there are no refunds, no returns under any circumstances. You have to,
No exchanges.
and no exchanges. You have to live with her the rest
He
of your life.
really said that to me.
And so
and I
Mom
laughed because I thought he was joking, but
He wasn't joking.
He wasn't joking.
When he would complain to Mom would say, Louis told you.
Yeah.
Louis told you.
I'd go to
He
her
said,
mom and say, you know, Amy, and I just couldn't even finish it. She would say, I don't want to hear it. Louis tried to tell you. Louis tried to warn you.
Luckily, he was dumb enough and didn't listen.
Yeah.
Another miracle that happened that God spoke to us was we had our 6 kids. Mason and Max were our 2 adopted ones. I was working in the office as a curriculum leader, and I get a phone call from Mandy, our adoption agent, and she says to me, Amy, how are you doing today? And I said, fine. And she said, hey, Mason's birth mother just gave birth to another child. And she wants this child to go home with the brother. And I said, oh, okay, this wasn't on our plan. And she said, well, I told her that. And I said, you already said 6 was it, you were done. And she said, will you just please ask? Will you just please ask? So I'm calling to ask. And I said, oh, wow, I have to talk to Mark, and I don't know. She said, that's okay. Call me Monday, this is on a Friday. Call me Monday and say, Amy, we need more time, and I'll place the child in a foster home until you guys decide. You can call and say, absolutely not, we're in over our heads now, forget it. Or you can say, yes, we'll take it. And I said, okay. She said, so take the weekend, talk about it, call me back Monday. Fine. Of course, if I'm going to sit at my desk and be miserable all day, guess who else is going to sit at the hospital in their office and be miserable all day? So I called him and I told him the story. He says to me, oh, okay. So
That's not exactly what I said.
Well, no, honey, I'm trying to be nice.
Okay.
And so...
is there a 7-second delay on this, by the way?
Yeah,
so bleep her out.
No, honey, there isn't. So we made a promise to each other. We talked to each other about it. We are not going to tell anybody, and we didn't, not our parents. It was just between the two of us and God, that this child was offered to us. We did not want, if we decided to say no, we did not want Mason to know that we didn't take his biological sibling. We did not want that to happen, and so we just said, we'll pray about this. Now, I have a unique relationship with God, because I talk to him and I can get ugly with God. I can, do my 2-year-old temper tantrum and say, God, come on, and throw my little fit. I can also praise and worship him and be very reverent and respectful. But we have such a close relationship that I get real with him. And I told him, I said, God, I need divine intervention here. What am I going to do? We have got to make a decision for our family. This isn't about me. This isn't about Mark. This is our whole family. Give us some wisdom. All weekend, no answer. Sunday, I'm putting the 2 boys in the nursery, and Mark goes on in to get our seats and stuff, and he comes back to the nursery door, and he said, Amy, you know how you always tell God, just send me a telegram. Just pick up the phone, God, and call me and say, Amy, this is God, here's what you're doing. And I said, yes. And he says, well, he did. This was the cover of the church bulletin.
On
the
that
Sunday, 2 days later after, and of course this was already printed on Friday afternoon. And if you see, it says a gift from God, and underneath it says, take heed that you despise not one of these little ones.
So what do you do with that?
And he said, I think God talked to you.
You can't argue with God. I mean, there's 3 kids, or this one would have been our 3rd that we adopted. So
I looked at him, and he said to me, so are you going in to tell your mom, because Mom went to church with us at that time, she was still living, and he said, are you going in to tell your mom we're getting another child, or am I? And I said, well, let's go in and do it together. And so we went in, we told Mom, and her first question was, well, is it a boy or a girl? Of course, she's excited, it's a grandkid, and those of you that are grandparents, you know grandkids are wonderful, because you get to send them home when you're done with them. Anyway, she's so excited, is it a boy or a girl?
We didn't
and I looked at Mark, and Mark looked at me, and I said, Mandy said that Mason's birth mother gave birth to another child. I don't know if it's a boy or girl. We never got that far.
We had boy stuff. We had no girls.
So, of course, as Mason, because that was our last one, as Mason outgrew everything, I got rid of it. Even the onesie outfits that boy or girl could wear, I got rid of it. We needed to get it out of there. We don't have room in our house. So I had nothing. Nothing. He was a year old. They're a year apart. Nothing. So I called Mandy up. I said, yep, we're going to take her. Okay, come get her. It's a girl. We asked her if she's a boy or girl, and I said, of course it would be a girl, Yeah. The church was wonderful. They took care of us and showered us with great gifts and family and friends, and we went and got her. Of course, now, I'm a curriculum director at the school, and at that time it was 2nd grade, the entire 2nd grade staff was depending on me to write the curriculum and lesson plans for the next few weeks, because I was a few weeks ahead of them all the time. And now I need to go on maternity leave right now. I left Friday. Most people have warning. and we're picking the baby up on Tuesday. So I go in on Monday and I explain this to my boss. She said, oh, and of course this is all before COVID, so nobody had heard of work from home kind of stuff. Now it would be a totally different story. But so on Wednesday, I took off Wednesday, we went and picked her up. On Thursday, Marley Elizabeth Combs is at Donovan Elementary laying on my desk while I'm at the computer working, and that's where she spent the first 6 weeks of her life while I got myself together. Teachers would come in and hold her and love on her and feed her, and it was free daycare, and she sat at work with me for 6 weeks while I tried to get myself together enough to take the rest of the year off. It was crazy. God took care of that. What are the chances of her coming? My joke is that God knew it was coming because 7 is a complete and holy number. And so we couldn't have 6 kids. That wasn't allowed.
No, we could have. I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, well, it had to be 7. And she has just been a real joy to our lives and,
as a baby,
and a great blessing.
As a baby, she was awesome. She didn't take a pacifier even. She slept all night.
It's because she was at school right from the beginning.
Yeah.
I figure that's why she didn't like school. We had a hard time getting her graduated because she'd been in school literally her whole life.
Yeah. Well, she was out of all 7 kids, she was the easiest baby. But then,
without a doubt.
Then she became a teenager, and that's a whole nother lesson.
A girl and teenager. We have to say nothing else to those of you who have
and
been
the
through
baby
that.
girl.
And the baby girl on top of that, yeah. The baby of 7, yeah.
Okay, so the next slide, we wanted to say, in Matthew 7:20, says, therefore by their fruits you will know them. So that's kind of part of what we're here about. We're trying to just show people that we're Christians because it's easy to say I'm a Christian. And so we have lots of fruits to show people. And here they are on the next
And here's our fruits. This is our crew, all of them together. Megan, the nurse, they pulled her graduation picture off of the wall because she was working, and so she couldn't be there, and they were upset, so they pulled her graduation picture off the wall so she could be in the family picture. That's everybody right there. The guy in the center with the hat and the beard, that's our unofficial adopted son, Tudor. That's his ex-wife's child, and Brianna, his fiance, is next to him. We've got Braden and Gabe, our 2 grandsons that are on the spectrum. They're standing up over there on the side. Mark Jr. and Barrett, our other grandson, are sitting on the couch next to them. His wife is not in the picture because, unbeknownst to us at the time, she was at home throwing up, thinking she was sick, but she's really pregnant. We're going to have a little baby girl here in another month or so. So, but we didn't know that at the time. And then down at the bottom, we have Corbin. Corbin is the guy with the glasses sitting next to Marley, and he is married to Morgan, the one holding the picture of Megan. And
we don't talk much about them.
you don't hear much about them, and you know why? They're so boring.
They're goody two-shoes.
They're
I don't
on
think
the
they've ever
cruise
broke
ship.
a law.
You know, they have
know.
followed the perfect little typical Leave It to Beaver kind
He's
of life.
a computer nerd.
He's a computer nerd, and she's this business manager, and just these great people, and bought this house, and they're redoing it all themselves, and it's whatever. It's boring for us.
No testimony.
But we love them. And then on the floor there, you'll see Shake. He's the Moroccan with Memory and behind him. And you see everybody there. That's our crew. That's the fruits of our spirit. And there's testimonies coming out of that clan that can come out of your clan too.
But if you notice, everyone's smiling in the picture.
And they really are. We have a good time together,
Yeah,
despite all the Gilligan's Island mess that we're trying to live through. And that is pretty much, if those of you that remember that pretty much is our life. We have been through a lot of things. And we know everybody in here, whether you're ready to admit it or not, have been through a lot of things. We come clean because we want to testify about Jesus. We want to tell you what he's done with our life. Every one of these things we do laugh about. Last Friday night, we were running some errands, and Mark and I are cracking up laughing as we're trying to go from one place to another, and a son calls and says, I'm at the Y and just locked my keys in the car, can you come? So we had to turn around and go back, and we're heading back to the place again, and then we get another phone call, hey, do you guys, so we turned around and went back, and we're laughing saying
Then
this
we got
20-minute
a
trip.
roadblock was on the road, so we couldn't go to Forest. We had to go around the road, and then it started raining, and then it's like,
And we really was
that's
going
kind of
to,
our life, so we
to
just-
trim
we
up a
just
grandma's
laugh.
house, and
Yeah.
it was a mess. But anyway, that's our life, and we laugh about it now because we do know we have real freedom. We do know who's in charge of this. And despite all of this craziness that we're living through, we know for a fact that Jesus has got this.
Right.
And for us right now, it's a testimony. We did not realize that we were going to be sitting up here sharing this stuff with you guys. But we realize now that this was a testimony. God was giving that because he knew we would be wise enough, he would given us enough knowledge and wisdom to share that with you, to be real with you guys, to say, we're a hot mess. Despise what you see out there on a Sunday morning. I asked Joe, I said, for those of you who don't know, I am the lead deacon here. And I said, after I tell everybody my real life, are they going to kick me out and excommunicate me off the deacon board? And he just laughed at me. But we're real. We're real people, and you guys are too. And you can have the real freedom that we have dealing with the real lives that we're dealing with if you will give it to Jesus. You need to give it to him. You need to bring him into your lives. We're going to hang out up here a little bit afterwards, and if anybody wants to come up and wants to talk to us more about a specific area, we are prayer warriors. We will pray for you. We will keep you in touch with you. If you need encouragement, Mark and I are more than happy to give it to you. You have to be ready to laugh because we probably will make you laugh when we're telling our stories, because that's the spirit of joy that God has given us to get through all of that stuff. So we want to thank you guys for listening to us. Mark wanted to leave everybody with a blessing.
Well, we really do have more info.
Lots.
We probably have weeks worth.
Joe didn't want us to take the whole summer and do the whole summer series. He just wanted us to do one of them.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I think Joe picked us because we were the most screwed up family he knew of, so we would represent well.
We have known Joe since he was 15 years old.
Yeah.
So Joe has been in our life forever.
So I do want to leave you with this. In Numbers 6:24 through 26 says, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And we want to thank you guys. And we'll have our books sitting out on the table
We
out
don't
front.
have books, honey. We don't have time to write
don't have
books. No, we don't have time to write books.
CDs.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
CDs.